History, as it is commonly taught, presents a linear progression of human civilization. The dominant narrative suggests that for most of our existence, humans were simple hunter-gatherers, struggling for survival with rudimentary tools and limited knowledge. Only in the last few thousand years, with the advent of agriculture and the rise of great ancient cultures such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley civilization, did humanity supposedly take its first steps toward complexity. But what if that story is incomplete? What if we are missing entire chapters of our past? Chapters that point to an advanced civilization lost to time. One of the most outspoken proponents of this idea is Graham Hancock, a journalist and author whose work has consistently challenged mainstream archaeology. His theories are considered radical because they propose that a highly sophisticated culture flourished long before recorded history, only to be wiped out by a cataclysmic disaster. Hancock's research suggests that evidence of this forgotten civilization exists in ancient ruins, myths, and geological anomalies scattered across the world. His ideas have been met with fierce resistance from the academic community, which largely dismisses his work as pseudoarchaeology. However, his arguments, supported by emerging scientific discoveries, continue to capture the imagination of millions who question whether we truly know our own origins. This video explores Graham Hancock's forbidden theory of a lost civilization before history. By the end of this discussion, you may find yourself questioning whether we truly are the first advanced civilization to walk the Earth, or merely the latest in a long cycle of rise and destruction. For decades, the prevailing model of human history has remained largely unchanged. The standard view holds that Homo sapiens emerged around 300,000 years ago, slowly developing the cognitive and social skills necessary for survival. For the vast majority of this time, humans lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers, forming small bands that relied on foraging, fishing, and hunting for sustenance. There were no great cities, no monumental structures, no signs of advanced knowledge, only a slow, gradual development of basic tools and survival strategies. According to conventional archaeology, the turning point in human civilization came around 10,000 BCE with the Neolithic Revolution. This is when humans supposedly first began domesticating plants and animals, leading to the formation of permanent settlements. Over thousands of years, these early agrarian societies grew into the first true civilizations, such as Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, which emerged around 3000 BCE. Writing systems developed, trade expanded, and political structures took shape, marking the dawn of recorded history. This mainstream timeline is based on extensive archaeological evidence, including carbon-dated artifacts, ancient texts, and well-documented settlement patterns. Academics argue that before agriculture, there was simply no infrastructure capable of supporting large, complex societies. Without farming, there was no surplus food supply to sustain specialized workers, architects, or engineers, which is why monumental structures did not exist until much later. The Ice Age, which lasted from approximately 2.6 million years ago to around 11,700 years ago, is seen as a major factor in shaping early human life. During this period, vast glaciers covered much of the planet, forcing humans into small, isolated populations. It was not until the Ice Age ended, bringing a more stable climate, that human societies could expand and flourish. The consensus among historians and archaeologists is that no evidence supports the existence of a lost, technologically sophisticated civilization before recorded history. In their view, the idea of an advanced culture predating ancient Egypt or Sumer is nothing more than speculation, lacking the artifacts, cities, and records that would be expected of such a civilization. But what if the evidence has been overlooked or misinterpreted? What if certain discoveries do not fit into this framework because they belong to a forgotten era of human history? Graham Hancock argues that there is compelling proof that a great civilization existed before the mainstream timeline allows, and that this civilization was wiped from history by a catastrophic event, leaving only scattered traces of its knowledge behind. Graham Hancock's theory directly challenges the mainstream historical model. He argues that an advanced civilization thrived long before the rise of Sumer and Egypt, possessing knowledge and skills that should not have existed at that time. According to Hancock, this civilization was not merely a collection of scattered hunter-gatherers, but a highly organized society with sophisticated architectural, astronomical, and possibly even maritime abilities. At the heart of Hancock's theory is the belief that this lost civilization was destroyed in a global cataclysm, possibly caused by a comet impact during the Younger Dryas period. The Younger Dryas, which occurred roughly 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, was a sudden and dramatic return to Ice Age conditions after a period of warming. It brought devastating climate shifts, mass extinctions, and widespread environmental upheaval. Many scientists attribute this abrupt cooling to natural climate fluctuations, but Hancock believes the evidence points to a cosmic disaster, one that would have wiped out an advanced human culture, leaving behind only the remnants of its knowledge. Hancock's hypothesis is supported by geological and archaeological clues that, he argues, do not fit neatly into the conventional historical timeline. He points to structures like Göbekli Tepe, a massive megalithic site in Turkey dating back to at least 9,600 BCE, thousands of years before the first known cities. He highlights submerged ruins off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Caribbean, suggesting that they may have once belonged to thriving coastal civilizations lost to rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. He examines ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis map, which depict coastlines that were supposedly unknown to early cartographers, implying the existence of older, forgotten sources of geographical knowledge. These anomalies, Hancock argues, form a pattern. They suggest that our understanding of history is incomplete, that the origins of civilization stretch far deeper into the past than mainstream archaeologists acknowledge. If true, his theory would force a radical re-evaluation of human history, challenging everything we think we know about where we come from and how we got here. One of the most significant discoveries that challenges the conventional timeline of human history is Göbekli Tepe. Located in modern-day Turkey, this massive site consists of intricately carved stone pillars arranged in circular formations, some weighing up to 50 tons. What makes Göbekli Tepe so extraordinary is not just its scale, but its age. Radiocarbon dating places its construction at roughly 9,600 BCE, thousands of years before the traditionally accepted dawn of civilization. The existence of such an elaborate structure at a time when humans were supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers raises profound questions. According to mainstream history, agriculture was necessary for the rise of settled societies and large-scale construction projects. Yet Göbekli Tepe predates the first known agricultural societies. If hunter-gatherers built it, where did they acquire the knowledge, labor force, and organizational skills required to design and construct such a monumental site? Graham Hancock argues that Göbekli Tepe is not an isolated anomaly, but a remnant of a far older and more advanced civilization. He suggests that the site may have been built by survivors of this lost civilization, who attempted to preserve some of their knowledge in the wake of a cataclysmic event. Mainstream archaeologists counter this claim by insisting that Göbekli Tepe was constructed by pre-agricultural societies experimenting with monumental architecture. But even if that were true, the question remains: How did these early people develop the skills to build such a site, when no other structures of comparable complexity exist from that era? Even more mysterious is the fact that Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried around 8000 BCE. Why would an ancient people go through the effort of constructing such an elaborate structure, only to deliberately cover it up? Was it an attempt to protect something? Was it buried in response to a catastrophe? Or was it hidden to preserve knowledge for future generations? These unanswered questions only add to the mystery of Göbekli Tepe and its potential link to Hancock's lost civilization. If an advanced civilization existed before the last ice age, then many of its cities would have been built along coastlines, where access to water, trade, and agriculture would have provided the ideal conditions for societal growth. But at the end of the last ice age, global sea levels rose by over 400 feet due to the melting of massive ice sheets. If early civilizations had indeed existed along the coasts, they would now be buried under the ocean, lost to history. Hancock has extensively researched submerged ruins that suggest the existence of lost coastal cities. One of the most well-known is the underwater complex off the coast of India, near the Gulf of Khambat. In 2001, marine archaeologists using sonar imaging discovered what appeared to be the remains of an ancient city, complete with geometric structures resembling roads, walls, and large buildings. Artifacts recovered from the site were radiocarbon dated to approximately 9,500 BCE, aligning closely with the end of the last ice age. Similar discoveries have been made in other parts of the world. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument, an underwater megalithic structure, has been the subject of intense debate. Some argue that it is a natural rock formation, while others insist that the straight edges, stepped terraces, and carved patterns indicate human craftsmanship. If the latter is true, it would suggest that an advanced culture existed in Japan long before the conventional timeline allows. In the Caribbean, submerged ruins near Cuba have sparked speculation about an ancient city lying beneath the ocean. Sonar images have revealed what appear to be stone structures arranged in grid-like formations. Although research on this site remains limited, the possibility of a lost city beneath the waters of the Caribbean raises further questions about human civilization's true history. Hancock argues that these underwater ruins are precisely where we should be looking if we hope to uncover evidence of a lost civilization. If an advanced society flourished before the Younger Dryas event, many of its cities and settlements would have been swallowed by the rising seas, leaving little trace behind, except for those few ruins that have yet to be fully explored. Another intriguing piece of evidence supporting Hancock's theory comes in the form of ancient maps that depict geographical details seemingly impossible for the time periods in which they were drawn. The most famous of these is the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral Piri Reis. This map, which compiles older sources, appears to show an accurate depiction of the coastline of Antarctica, long before the continent was officially discovered in 1820. Even more remarkably, the coastline appears to be drawn without its ice cover, which mainstream science suggests has been in place for at least 6,000 years. How could an early 16th century map contain information that should have been unknown at the time? The most conventional explanation is that the map was based on earlier charts created by unknown civilizations. But if these civilizations had access to such precise geographical knowledge, where did they obtain it? Hancock argues that maps like these are remnants of a lost, advanced maritime culture that once charted the world's coastlines before their knowledge was lost. In addition to the Piri Reis map, other ancient maps, such as the Orontius Phineus map from 1531, also depict Antarctica's coastline with remarkable accuracy. If these maps were indeed based on earlier, now lost sources, they could be indirect evidence of an advanced civilization that possessed navigational and cartographic skills far beyond what mainstream history currently acknowledges. One of the most puzzling aspects of ancient architecture is the striking similarity between megalithic structures found across the world. From the pyramids of Egypt to the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica, from the massive stone blocks of Baalbek in Lebanon to the precisely carved megaliths of Peru, these ancient constructions demonstrate a level of engineering skill that is difficult to explain, given the supposed technological limitations of their time. Hancock argues that these similarities are not coincidences, but evidence of a shared global knowledge system inherited from a lost civilization. The precision with which these structures align with celestial bodies, such as the solstices, equinoxes, and star constellations, suggests that their builders possessed advanced astronomical knowledge. Some of these sites, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza, are so precisely aligned that even modern engineers struggle to explain how ancient civilizations achieved such accuracy. At the heart of Graham Hancock's theory of a lost civilization is the idea that a global cataclysm wiped out this advanced culture, leaving behind only scattered survivors who attempted to preserve their knowledge in later civilizations. One of the most compelling scientific explanations for such a catastrophe is the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which suggests that a comet or asteroid struck the Earth approximately 12,800 years ago, triggering a sudden and dramatic return to Ice Age conditions. The Younger Dryas period was a mysterious and abrupt cooling event that lasted for roughly 1,200 years. Before this period, Earth was emerging from the last Ice Age, with global temperatures rising and glacial ice retreating. Then, almost instantly in geological terms, temperatures plummeted, ice sheets expanded again, and megafauna like mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths went extinct. This sudden shift also disrupted human populations, forcing many early societies into survival mode. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that Earth was struck by a fragmented comet or asteroid, causing widespread devastation. The strongest evidence for this theory comes from a layer of sediment known as the Younger Dryas boundary, found across multiple continents. Within this layer, researchers have discovered microscopic nanodiamonds, high levels of iridium, and tiny spherical carbon particles, all signatures of an extraterrestrial impact. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from the presence of platinum, an element commonly associated with asteroid or comet impacts. Studies have shown a significant spike in platinum levels in ice core samples dating precisely to the onset of the Younger Dryas period. This suggests that something dramatic, likely from space, occurred at that time. In addition to geochemical evidence, physical scars on the planet's surface hint at a massive impact. The most significant candidate for an impact crater is the Hiawatha crater in Greenland, a massive ice-covered depression more than 30 kilometers wide. Radar scans suggest that it could be an impact site from around the same time as the Younger Dryas cooling event. If confirmed, this would provide strong support for the idea that a cosmic collision played a role in the sudden climate shift. If a comet or asteroid did strike Earth during this period, the consequences would have been catastrophic. The energy released by the impact would have triggered massive wildfires, sending enormous amounts of soot and debris into the atmosphere. This would have blocked sunlight, causing rapid cooling and widespread crop failures. In addition, the heat from the impact could have melted vast ice sheets, unleashing cataclysmic floods that reshaped landscapes and wiped out coastal settlements. One of the most famous geological formations linked to these floods is the scablands of North America. These vast, deeply eroded landscapes in the Pacific Northwest show clear evidence of massive, high-energy water flows that carved out deep canyons, and scattered house-sized boulders across the region. Mainstream geologists attribute these formations to the repeated outburst floods of glacial Lake Missoula, but Hancock argues that similar flood events may have occurred worldwide, perhaps even destroying a once thriving civilization. Further evidence of catastrophic flooding can be found in ancient myths from cultures across the globe. The biblical story of Noah's Ark, the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, and Hindu accounts of a great deluge all share striking similarities. A warning of an impending flood, the survival of a select group of people, and the subsequent rebirth of civilization. Hancock suggests that these flood myths are not mere allegories, but historical memories of a real event, one that may have taken place at the end of the Younger Dryas period. No discussion of a lost civilization would be complete without mentioning Atlantis, the legendary advanced society described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. According to Plato, Atlantis was a powerful civilization that existed thousands of years before his time, possessing great technological and maritime prowess. However, it was ultimately destroyed in a single day and night of cataclysmic flooding, sinking beneath the waves and disappearing forever. While many scholars consider Atlantis a myth, Hancock suggests that it could be a distorted memory of the civilization lost in the Younger Dryas disaster. If an advanced culture did exist before this period, and if it was located along the coastlines that were later submerged by rising sea levels, then Atlantis, or something like it, may have been real. Plato's story could be one of the last echoes of a forgotten history that was passed down orally for generations before being written down. Whether Atlantis was a real place or not, the Younger Dryas event presents a strong case for a global disaster that could have erased much of human progress at the time. If Hancock is correct, then history is not a simple, linear path of progress, but rather a cycle, one in which civilizations rise, flourish, and are occasionally reset by natural catastrophes. If an advanced civilization existed before the Younger Dryas period, it would mean that the story of human progress is not one of constant improvement, but rather of periods of growth followed by sudden collapse. This would align with patterns seen throughout history, where great empires rise, flourish, and eventually fall, only on a much longer timescale. Acknowledging this pattern would change how we think about our place in history, making it clear that even the most advanced societies are not immune to destruction. One of the biggest implications of Hancock's work is the need to take catastrophism seriously when analyzing history. For much of the 20th century, scholars favored a gradualist view of human progress, assuming that civilizations developed steadily over time with few major interruptions. However, evidence from the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that sudden, dramatic events can reshape history in an instant. If a comet or asteroid impact wiped out a previous civilization, it raises the question of how many times such events have occurred in the past. Mainstream historians accept that mass extinctions have shaped biological evolution, such as the asteroid impact that ended the age of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. But they have been slower to acknowledge that similar events might have influenced human history. If Hancock's theory is correct, then a major part of our past may be missing, erased not only by time, but by cosmic destruction. If a highly advanced society existed before recorded history, it is likely that some of its knowledge survived through oral traditions, myths, and scattered remnants. Hancock argues that certain ancient traditions, such as the flood myths found in nearly every culture, may be fragmented memories of this lost civilization's downfall. Many ancient cultures attribute their knowledge to mysterious, civilizing figures who appeared suddenly and imparted wisdom. In Sumerian mythology, the Apkallu were beings who brought civilization to humanity. In Mesoamerican legend, Quetzalcoatl was said to have introduced agriculture, astronomy, and writing. In Egypt, The god Thoth was credited with bestowing knowledge upon the people. Hancock suggests that these stories might not be mere myths, but recollections of real individuals, perhaps survivors of a lost civilization who attempted to rebuild in the aftermath of the Younger Dryas catastrophe. This raises an even larger question: how much of what we consider to be the achievements of known civilizations, such as the ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, and Maya, might have actually been inherited from an earlier, forgotten culture? If so, our understanding of history is incomplete, and many of the innovations we attribute to later civilizations might actually have deeper roots. The significance of Hancock's work goes beyond history. It forces us to reflect on our present and future. If an advanced civilization did once exist and was erased by catastrophe, then we must acknowledge the vulnerability of our own society. The study of past cataclysms is not just an academic exercise. It carries an urgent message about the fragility of human civilization and the importance of preparing for potential future disasters. Whether through natural disasters, cosmic impacts, or self-inflicted destruction, history suggests that great civilizations can disappear almost overnight. Understanding these cycles of destruction and rebirth may be crucial to ensuring that our own civilization does not suffer a similar fate. For those who find this perspective intriguing, the journey does not have to end here. There is a vast world of ancient history to explore, from newly discovered archaeological sites to emerging scientific theories about human prehistory. The more we question, the more we learn, and the more we learn, the closer we come to uncovering the truth about humanity's forgotten past.